Basic elastic waistband skirt is probably one of the easiest things you could sew, especially if you're using a medium weight fabric that doesn't have any stretch in it like I am today. My model today is a 2-year-old, but you could easily adjust these measurements for any size child or adult and any length skirt. You're going to need 2 identical rectangles of fabric. The height of each of these rectangles should be whatever you want the length of your skirt to be, plus 1 inch for a hem and 3 inches for the elastic waistband casing. So if you wanted a skirt that started at your belly button and went down to your knee, and the distance between your belly button and your knee were, say, 20 inches, then you would cut a rectangle that was 24 inches tall. The exact measurement here is less important than the consistency. You really want to make sure that it's truly a rectangle. All your corners are right angles, and that if it's 24 inches on one side, it's 24 inches on the other side as well. The width here is also flexible. Mine is 3 times the measurement of my model's waist, which creates a pretty full skirt. You could do less than that, but you don't want to go too much less than that. Technically, in order to fit on the body, it only needs to be a few inches bigger than your hips, but that really wouldn't be a flattering look because it would look fitted along the hips and really baggy and loose around the waist, which is typically the opposite form we're trying to go for. Once my pieces were cut, I finished all my edges with a serger. You could use a zigzag stitch on a regular sewing machine, or skip this step if you're truly just playing around and trying to get a feel for things. To assemble, lay the 2 identical rectangles on top of each other so that the right side of the fabric is facing one another. Use a 1/2 inch seam allowance to sew along both of the shorter ends so that you're attaching both pieces of fabric and end up with a really big tube kind of shape. Press those seams open. Fold down the part that you want to be at the top 1.5 inches. Use a ruler to make sure that it's exactly 1.5 inches all the way across, and then press that in place. Depending on how well your fabric presses, it might be helpful to use pins or clips here. Next, sew all the way around that folded edge with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is not strictly necessary, but I think it really creates a much more professional, clean, finished look. Then, sew 1.25 inches away from that folded edge. But this time, you're not going to go all the way around. You're going to leave about a 2-inch gap between where your stitches begin and where they end. This creates a nice casing for our elastic to go. Now you'll need 1-inch wide elastic. Pin a safety pin to one end and feed it through the casing we've just created. This may require a bit of patience, especially for larger waistbands. Take your time, being careful not to let the safety pin open or twist the elastic as you go. Once you get all the way around, pull the elastic through the gap you started in and use pins to keep it in place. Try it on or use measurements you've taken of your model to determine exactly how much elastic you'll need. Double check that the elastic didn't get twisted anywhere along the waistband, then lay one end of the elastic on top of the other and top stitch it with your sewing machine. I usually go over it maybe 4 times. While you're at the sewing machine, close the gap that we had left 1.25 inches away from the folded edge. Now all that's left is the hem. Mark 2 inches up from the bottom of the skirt all the way around. Fold up the bottom so that the edge meets the marks you had just made and press that in place. You could fold in that raw edge again so that it's hidden away, or you could do what I did with this one and just bring it over to your sewing machine, sewing 7/8 of an inch away from the folded edge, locking that hem in place. Press everything and you're done.